Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I've got a lot of fun projects for you today. I'm so glad you can join me. But what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Today we're going to be working on spring home decor crafts using lots of Pinterest ideas and Dollar Tree supplies, of course. So let's get started with project number 1. So for this project, I'm going to use one of these thick round circles. Now what I did is I cut off the edge just right above that hole there that holds the twine. This is what it looks like. I use my jigsaw. Now if you don't have access to that, you could just fill the hole with wood filler and then just sandpaper and sand off a little spot there so that it sits nice and flat on the table. Okay, I wanted mine like a little bit shorter, a longer straight edge, but work with what you've got. Now I'm also using one of these fabric Easter baskets I got at Dollar Tree last year. I don't know if they have them in again this year. Our spring Easter stuff isn't quite all the way out yet, but I'm going to use the ears and the handle off this basket. Now if you don't have this cute burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree would make really cute ears, according to the Pinterest idea I saw. So what I am doing is just tracing around the ear. I took the ears off the basket and the handle. I'll bring the handle up later. And I'm just kind of judging how tall I want my ear, how skinny I'm going to want it. So I'm just kind of redrawing a pattern here. So you choose how you want it to be. I'm going to make mine a little shorter, as you can see here, and then a little bit skinnier in width. So once I get that, I'm going to go ahead and cut out what I liked best for my size and, width here. And then I'm going to take that to the ear that's already cut. Make sure I like it here. This is how I want it. And I will recut it out of the ears from the basket. Again, if you use that burlap ribbon, would look really cute as well. And you might even want to double it to give it a little more thickness. It would work really cute. Once I get that done, I've got my 2 little ears here. Get the other one cut out. Perfect. Just like this. I'll make sure I like how it looks once it's done, and I'm going to fold over one end like this. So that's why I kind of like that, opposite side. And then I'm taking the handle here, and I think it's about a 1/2 inch in width here, and I'm just basically cutting, the entire handle about 1/2 inch wide, and then I'll tie that into a bow and of course adjust my little tails and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll come back to that in a minute. Now we're going to go painting. I'm going to use a Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color drop cloth, and I'm leaving do I leave my mistake in here? This wood is really light in color, so I start to paint it. Yeah, I leave it here to show you what not to do. I go to paint this, and because I wanted to distress it and have the wood show around the edges, when I go to distress this, since I'm using a light paint color, you don't really see the distressing much. So I sand it with my sander off camera and decide, wait a minute, that's not going to work. So I'm coming back in with this Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water. I sand it off as much of the paint as possible, especially around the edges. So when you go to do this, if you want a darker wood to show, if you're going to distress your wood, paint it with the Waverly Wax first, just kind of stain it, and then go back in and paint it with your paint color over the top, so that way when you go to sand it off, you've got that darker wood showing underneath and it looks a little more distressed, as you can kind of see down below. So all that said, let's paint some cheeks and nose, eyes, all that stuff. I'm going to use this little flower button for later. And what I did is I started with this pink paint and a dauber, and I'm just painting on the cheeks really kind of thick and daubing it up and down. And then I'm using some paper towel here to kind of dry it off a little bit. And then I don't have my sander on, but it's got sandpaper on it, right? So then I'm going across it to kind of lighten it up a little bit more and distress the cheeks. Now I've got some white paint here, chalk paint. I mixed with water, my fan brush, and I'm just really lightly, it's really soupy and watery. So really lightly fan brush to add some speckles to it. And you can see here when it dries, it's really light in color. I want that because I want kind of 2 layers of dots here. So I want some in the background and some in the foreground. So now I'm taking my little tool here, you can get this at Dollar Tree, and I'm dipping it into the paint and then putting the dots on so that I've got 2 layers here of dots. So I've got some cute little freckles, so to speak. Now I'm going to come in with my eyes. I'm just kind of finding the center of my face here, and I'm painting the eyes. I'm using the bottom of a paintbrush. I hate this part. It's little black dots, but I get so nervous when I go to do this because I want the dots to look really nice. So I always get nervous when I'm making the eyes for some silly reason. So I've got my eyes on there because it's kind of hard to fix even though they're just black dots. And now I'm coming in with some pink paint, a little bit different color pink paint, and I just painted a little heart for the nose. Got all that to dry. Now my ears here, I went in with my sewing machine and I kind of folded over the bottom edge here to give it a little bit of character, and then I sewed around the edges with my sewing machine. And if you don't have a sewing machine, of course, you know, you can use hot glue or the Beacon Fabri-Tac glue to kind of fold that tip of the ear over and then kind of fold the bottom edge there. And now I'm just kind of coming in with my fingers and pulling on the threads around the outside to kind of make it tattered. I've got my bow here. I went back in and decided I wanted sewing on that too, so I sewed around the edges of my bow, and now I'm retying it back into a bow again. And I decided when I went this way that I kind of like it flipped over, so I'm going to flip that over, that bow over, so the pink polka dot shows. Using Beacon Fabri-Tac glue here, I'm just going to glue it onto the back of the bunny. I add a little bit more glue than this. I get these into place and then I add a little bit more glue on the back. So I go all the way up to the top of the wood piece to glue the ears on really, really well. I do that part off camera. And then I'm taking a little bit of that pink paint again in the dauber, really lightly kind of daubing in the center of the ears. And now I'm just taking this stylus tool and some white paint, and I'm just adding 2 little tiny dots, one at the top of each eye, just to give it a little bit of a 3D look, to give the eyes a little bit of something so they're not just flat on the wood. And then I'm gluing the little wood button on the folded part of the ear. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue my bow on, again deciding I liked it backwards so the pink is up and matches the fold over on the ear. And I'm gluing a little twine bow here to the top of that. That makes this project complete, and we'll see the finished look at the end of project number 2. So with that said, let's move right on into project number 2. So for this project, I'm going to use one of these wood bunny head shape pieces and one of these rectangle wood pieces from Dollar Tree. And I did use my miter box and saw to cut off the bottom of that bunny head and to cut off this piece of wood here. And I believe it measures, let's see, yep, just right under 5 inches or so. And then I'm going to use this wood grain paper I get at Hobby Lobby. And what I did is I've got my pieces already cut off camera. I cut my pieces for the paper for the top and bottom of the piece of wood. I cut it about 1/4 inch shorter all the way around so that little bit of the perimeter of the wood shows. Covered the bunny back completely, and the front of the bunny I cut that a little bit short. Going to take my Waverly Antique Wax here, and I'm going to do it right this time, mixed with water, and then my Dixie Belle drop cloth chalk paint here. Of course, paint around the edges of all my pieces so we get that stained look. I was going to make sure I did it right this time. And then we'll move into, once that's dry, we'll go into using the chalk paint and cover that all up. And then, of course, off camera, I'll always sand it and distress it. So I'm taking my papers to the sewing machine this time. I'll do that for all the projects today, and I just sew around my paper. Those who've been with me a while know I do this. I just sew on it like I'm sewing on regular fabric. I use a size 10 or 11 needle depending on the manufacturer. That works best. And my machine likes all polyester thread best, but you could use cotton thread. And I'm on like a sewing length of 4 and tension set on 4. Once I've got everything sewn, I take the open end of my scissor blades and I just scrape around the edges. As you can see here, it kind of gives a nice distressed look. And then once all that's complete, we'll go ahead and start using the Beacon Fabri-Tac glue and gluing our paper onto our wood pieces here. I love when I distress this wood here. It looks really cool. It almost looks like the paint is peeling on the bunny head. It turned out really cool. I didn't do anything different. I just kind of, painted and distressed, but it looks like it's peeling paint. You'll see that a little bit later here. Get my papers on here, and I'm going to use one of these signs, although later I think I changed the shape a little bit, a wood button some cute plaid ribbon, some Excelsior. I get this at Joann Crafts. And some of this moss. I think I got this at Joann's, but I know you can find that at Dollar Tree. And this, whenever I always say I use some thin thread or thin twine for my little bows, this is what I get at Hobby Lobby. It looks like this. Decorative ribbon, of course. And then it's really easy to just take apart. And then you get that really thin twine. So there's my secret. And now I'm going to get these, use one of these wooden picks I got at Valentine's from Dollar Tree. I'm going to use a little pink one. And if you don't have that, you could use a tiny little wood heart. And then I'm going to use this Excelsior here. And I just kind of twisted in the center. And we're going to use this to make it look like our little bunny whiskers. And then I'll use that little wood pink pick, that little wood heart pick. I'll take that for my nose. So like I said, if you don't have any of these little picks, you could use the little wood hearts, and I'm just distressing it a little bit, and then I will cut the little, stem, so to speak, off the bottom, and I will kind of sand that a little bit and kind of look distressed like the rest of the little heart. And I will glue it right in the center of that Excelsior, aka whiskers. And then I tied a little bow with my little ribbons. You can choose whatever color ribbon you want. And I'm going to glue that in at the top left of the ear. And then here comes some of my thin twine ribbon here. And I tied it through the center of that little flower-shaped button. And we're going to glue that down to the center of our little plaid bow there. Here I come in all nervous again with my little dots. I've got another little tool here that's got a little flatter head. And I meant to make them crooked there. And then I changed the shape. I'm more of a square shape for my sign. Now you can use these metallic markers, or I'm going to use this glass paintbrush marker because I like it. It has a really nice thin tip for writing. But yeah, I decided I didn't want to go with that other little shape sign. I chose the more square shape sign. You can get these at Dollar Tree as well. And I just wrote on there, Hello Spring. And then I will go back over it about 3 times with the paintbrush marker here to give it a nice, bold look. Drew a little heart in between the 2 words. And this is what it looks like. All right, so then we're going to go ahead. Got some of that moss here, and I'm gluing just a little bit to the front of our wood block here, just to give it a little bit of, I don't know, texture for our project. Leaving the back end open, I'm just using Beacon Fabri-Tac glue here. It works just fine. I will glue that to the back of the wood block there. I'll let that set up for a little bit. And now this little clothespin, I'm just going to glue that shut, and then I'm going to add some glue to the bottom of the sign. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that to the front of our little wood block here, and that makes this project complete. So we've made a couple of bunny projects. Now it's time for a couple of carrot projects. Let's move on to project number 3. So for this project, we're going to use this little crate from Dollar Tree. We're going to use this wood heart, only we're going to need 3 of them. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to use some of these wood planks as well. I end up cutting one of them, of course. It doesn't need to be that big. Cut it to about, 4 inches or so. And you can do that with a craft knife and, and a ruler. So I've already got my papers cut. I traced around all my pieces and I cut them so they were just a little bit shy. I'm going to cover front and back. That way you see the wood perimeter around it, of course. This is what it looks like. I trace them, and then I go in and I draw in about 1/8 of an inch, sometimes 1/4 of an inch, and I redraw the new pattern so that way when I get it cut out, it fits on the wood so a little bit of that wood perimeter shows. So that way when I paint and I distress it, you see all that. So, because why are we painting and distressing it if we're not going to show that a little bit, right? So I always just like to cut my paper a little bit shorter than my wood pieces so that you see all that painting and distressing. This is what it looks like, of course, after you cut it out. I'm going to take mine again to the sewing machine. You can opt out of this if you're not a sewer. I just love to add this little bit of texture to my papers when I am kind of combining, wood and paper projects just to give it that little bit of kind of a farmhouse look. Again, I'm going to take the open end of my scissor blades and scrape along the edges. This brings in that little bit of a rustic look, gives it a little bit of a textural element to our pieces. And it kind of pops it up off the wood a little bit when you do this. You can see what it looks like with and without, so you can see what style you like best. And then I am doing it right again this time. Waverly Antique Wax I will do on the crate. That's it. And on my wood pieces, once I do the Waverly Antique Wax, one of my hearts I'm going to do in the drop cloth, one of them in this terracotta, the Dixie Belle paint line, and in this DIY Debbie's Design Diary paint line, I'm doing the Summer Crush, which is a little bit different shade of orange. And then I'll also do this little sign in the drop cloth color as well. So what I want to do here is use my drill here, and I'm going to go straight down in the center of the heart, and I'm going to drill a hole in all 3 of my heart pieces. Because what we're going to do is I am going to use some pip berries for the carrot stems, and I want to slide them into the little hole. But doesn't matter if you can't drill a hole, don't have access to a drill, you can glue them on because we'll kind of cover up that perimeter anyway. So you can, go ahead and just glue them on top because we'll cover up that glue. So here I am just painting my crate. I just do it just with the Waverly Wax on this one, and then I'll of course sand it and make it look distressed. And in all my heart pieces, I'm coming in with the Waverly Wax. I'm learning, do this first, if you want that kind of distressed look. And then I just come in with each of my colors around all my pieces and paint over the top of that Waverly Wax. Of course, distress it off camera. Here's what my crate looks like, all nice and distressed. And then I've got my other pieces distressed as well and sanded around the edges. We're going to go ahead and start gluing our papers on now. So I'm going to glue this paper onto my little sign here. And we'll go ahead and, of course, glue on our little papers to each of our carrots. Yes, our hearts have now become carrots. Love it. Thought that was a fun idea. The picture I saw on Pinterest, they were kind of really skinny carrot shapes, and it reminded me of like hearts. And I'm like, I could use those hearts from Dollar Tree. Why not? Make them look like carrots, right? And then you don't really have to cut anything out. We've already got our carrot shapes. And I kind of chose a couple different, patterns and things like that for carrot colors. A couple that were like the orange plaid. This is a plain orange, and the other one's kind of like an off-white to kind of fit in with my sign a little bit. So now we're coming in with the pip berries. I've got green and kind of an off-white here. I got these at Hobby Lobby last year, like St. Patty's Day. But you can just use white, you can use all green. I know Dollar Tree carries pip berries, and I'm gluing mine right into that hole. Again, if you don't have access to a drill, just glue, if you're using pip berries, right on top. Now, if you don't have pip berries, of course, you can use any other like greenery from Dollar Tree to simulate that greenery on top. Now, this is what it's going to look like. So if you're just gluing your stuff right on top, we're going to cover that to give it a little bit more textural element with some twine. So just go ahead and glue around the bottom of your pip berries or your greenery you're using, or you could use raffia for that. You could use raffia coming up out of the top to simulate the carrot top, and then just wrap your twine around the bottom. Give it a little bit of that textural design element. Gluing along the way. You can use your Fabri-Tac glue, your hot glue here if you want. And then it will cover up the glue, like I said earlier, twice. If you don't drill a hole and just glue your greenery on top, that covers it all up. Now I'm coming in, because my pip berries are a little long here, so I want to come in on all 3 of my carrots. I'm going to spread them out a little bit, and I'm just going to use some wire cutters here and just kind of, shorten them. I cut them all at different lengths. Some are tall, some are short, just to give it a little bit of character. And then I'm going to tie, I've got 3 little twine bows here. I'm going to glue it right at the top of the heart. And then I've got 3 different buttons here, 3 different patterned buttons here. I'm going to glue in the center of my bow. And then I'm going to use some of this moss here, and I'm going to glue it in between that bow and the twine at the bottom of our pip berries, just to kind of cover that space up a little bit and give us a little bit more of textural pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other 2 carrots the same way. I've got 3 carrots total. Fill that in, glue our twine bow and our button on top. Get the next one. Some of my carrot tops I have a little more white, a little less green. Just do what you want. Put your personality into it. I think raffia coming out of the top would be cute. We're going to go ahead and add our buttons here. Yeah, they're all the same color buttons, but they all have a little bit different pattern on top. Thought that was fun. And then we'll go ahead and glue our moss here right on top. Just a tiny little bit. You don't need too much. Just to give it a little bit of flavor. Thought that was fun. I just thought it'd need a little something more right there. And then once we get that done, we're going to work on getting our carrots into our little crate. So I've got this gel foam, of course, from Dollar Tree. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one down, kind of mark with my fingernail. I use this tool from Dollar Tree. It works great as a gel foam cutter. And then I'm just going to lay that in there. I don't even glue it down. You can see the one spot there. I already dunked the carrot into it. You push it down deep enough in there. It holds up nice and steady. They don't fall over or anything. Just push it all the way down, probably about a good ½ inch in there. Holds it up nice and stiff. These carrots are in there nice and solid. And then I'm going to use some of this Excelsior just around the top of all that gel foam so we can cover all of that green up. Hides that green gel foam really nicely. And once we get that done, we're going to go ahead and move on to our little sign that's going to go on the front of our crate. I've got a little wood heart here from these wood hearts I got at Valentine's. I picked up probably about 8 packages of the different shapes of hearts they had. I've got it all painted with one of the colors that I used on the carrots, and I'm just kind of distressing a little bit around the edges. And now I have this quote that I made off my Cricut. You could use these stickers from Dollar Tree. They're just about the right size. I'll list the fonts that I used on this in my description box. And so I'm just getting that on there. Peeling up my transfer tape here, if you have a Cricut machine or electronic cutting machine, a Silhouette or whatever. And then I'm going to put my little heart, I'm going to glue that just kind of hanging off the edge of the sign here. And then we're going to go ahead and glue this sign to the front of our crate. That makes this project complete, and I'll show you the final looks at the end of project number 4. So let's move on to our last project, number 4. For this project, we're going to make some fabric carrots, and I just kind of hand-drawn a little, kind of looks like a pizza slice. It's about 7 3/4 in width and about 7 1/2 in length, and then kind of looks like a diamond at the same time. So triangle shape, rounded at the top. You only need 1 piece of fabric, but I am using 2 here because my fabric is kind of thin. I got all my fabrics here at Walmart and Hobby Lobby. You can use Beacon Fabri-Tac glue or hot glue. If you're going to glue it, you're going to take your fabric with the printed sides together. All right, fold it in half, and then right at that seam with your hot glue or Fabri-Tac glue, you just go ahead and glue down the seam just like that. Right? The other option to glue or hot glue, you're going to have your printed side out, and you're going to fold it so you got about a 1/2 inch of that seam kind of hanging off the edge, right? And then you're going to glue on one side of the fabric and then fold that 1/2 inch or so over, just like that. So there's two options. The first option, you have to turn your fabric. The second option, you don't. Okay, so I'm of course taking mine to the sewing machine. If you're a sewer, you get it all sewn. And then you're going to turn your fabric inside out. So if you take that first gluing option, you've got to do this. If you glue it the other way, you don't have to turn. So it's your option how you want to put your carrot together if you're a gluer or a hot gluer. I'm using a little skewer here to kind of get down to the point there to kind of point that out, make a little carrot shape. Now I want my top edge a little tattered and frayed like this one. So it's your choice if you want that, of course. I just kind of pull on the threads on that cut edge there and kind of pull them up and get that little tattered edge there. Nice and easy. I say that a lot, don't I? And then when you get to, well, because it is. And then once you get your carrots all sewn and ready to go, you want to stuff all 3 of them. Now when you stuff them, I am stuffing it so I've got a little opening at the top. So and I'm checking it as I'm stuffing it. You want about, an inch and a half or so left at the top with no stuffing. Now I'm going to use decorative, the nautical rope here from Dollar Tree, of course, for my stem. But if you don't have any of this rope, there's all sorts of greenery from Dollar Tree you might have on hand, like this onion grass. You could even use raffia here, kind of like we did on the whiskers on our one bunny. That would look really cute. You've got lots of options here. So I'm cutting my rope pieces. I'm going to do 4 for each carrot. They're about 4 inches long. And what I'm doing is unraveling them about halfway down each of the pieces. I'll show you on one carrot. Just undoing it just so those little rope ends are nice and tattered and frayed. This Dollar Tree rope works good for that because it's, big, thick, and lots of pieces to each one. So we've got a nice top there. Now I'm going to put all 4 together and just glue them a little bit at the bottom and roll them up, and then a little piece of twine here just to hold it together in one unit. You don't have to do this part. I'm just doing it so it's easier to kind of glue it into the carrot. Then I'm going to glue around down the bottom. I'm going to stuff it down into that carrot. You can see I've got some twine on there ready, kind of a half knot. Then I put the carrot in and then continue pulling that twine into the finished bow as you see here. Just like that, finish all 3 carrots. I've decided to add some beads onto these. Now in hindsight, the beads look great if your carrots are separate. The way I did it, kind of bunched them all up and tied a bow around them. You don't notice the beads as much, so you may not want to put beads on it if you put it together like I did. So put the beads on, then make a knot at the end of the bead, cut off the excess so the bead doesn't fall off. And then the beads were a little bit brown tone for me, so I'm just using some chalk paint here and just doing a quick little wash on the bead just to kind of lighten them up a little bit. But yeah, I love the beads on them as the carrots lay like this, but the way I kind of put them in a bunch, I don't know, they're just not noticeable. Now this part I change up, but I left it in to give you inspiration, and I'm still kind of like, I still wanted it to work this way. But what I did is I painted 3 carrots and distressed them, right? And then I printed off some words, cut it with my Cricut. You, of course, could write it on there or letters. And I don't know if it was the font I used. I think the hearts were too big. I tried smaller hearts, but my smaller hearts were too small. I needed something in between. But I wanted to put these, I wanted my carrots to have a little bit of orange to it. And I think they look super cute like this. Using my crocodile, punching a hole in each of the hearts. And then I'm going to use a bulb pin. You get these in a package, a sewing section at Walmart. And I hook these to my carrots, and I love the way they look. And I do think the hearts are a little bit big. But then as I go to put them into a bunch, as with the beads, it was too much. So I take them all off. So in the end, you'll see kind of what I did. But I love this option if you're going to display them separately. So I left this in so that you could see it. Okay? I wanted to give you that inspiration if you want to do that. So here I'm going to go bunch them. I've got everything together. I've got a strip of fabric here. I've ripped off about 1 inch wide strip of fabric. I'm going to bunch it together, just putting it around all 3 carrots and then tying a bow to keep them in place. I don't glue the fabric on. Actually, I think I tacked it in one little spot, but in case I did want to take them apart. And I So once I get this on, I decide the hearts are too much. So I pull one heart off and I pull the word off of it and I just put one in the center. Still not pleased with this, but I wanted that little bit of orange. So I don't know what I'm going to end up doing, but I'm leaving it like this for now. I'm just adjusting the tails on my fabric here. Going to use a little sisal and I'm going to glue it in the center of the bow because I love how the bow looks. And then a wood button. And once I glue that on, this project is complete. So I hope you like the projects that I came up with today. I wanted the farmhouse, of course, I wanted them to have just that little bit of a rustic touch, and I wanted you to be able to use them like on a tiered tray if you have that kind of decor in your home, or of course stand alone, you know, just for a cute spring craft. So leave me a comment down below and let me know, are you a bunny fan or a carrot fan or both? And, you know, maybe let me know which project was your favorite. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you like what you saw here today, before you click off, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on a single video from me. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. When praying for something beyond our control of what you can see or hope for, you must know that when Jesus walked out of that tomb, everything that was impossible became possible. Very rarely our prayers are answered as quickly or as easily as we'd like them to be. But it's the prayers you pray when you feel like you want to quit praying that can bring the greatest breakthroughs. I don't know what you've been praying for the last day, week, month, 10 years. I don't know the answer you received during that prayer time, whether it be a yes, a no, or wait. But you have to give God the glory if it's a yes. Trust Him if the answer is no. And keep praying if the answer is wait. His timing and ours is not the same. You never know when, where, or how God will answer, but He always answers, so you can't quit. You have to have patience and persistence. You can't give up. I mean, what other option do you have? Praying is the only option. So Jesus, right now, in your name, I bow my head and my eyes are closed, and I pray for those who are seeking you right now, who are standing at your door and knocking, Father, in Jesus' name, and they're hoping and waiting for an answer. I pray that your grace and mercy would flow down from your heavenly throne, and you would answer them right now in this very moment, in this very time, in this very place, and touch their heart. I ask for this in your holy name. Amen. So I really hope you get your answers, sweet friends. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.